1260 KDUZ News, I'm Mark Wodarczyk. A sex offender from Gaylord was taken into custody recently following an incident in Le Sueur. 35-year-old Romeo Alba is a Level 2 predatory sex offender who was recently released from prison. He now faces charges of false imprisonment and fifth-degree assault after allegedly grabbing a young girl by the arm at the mall in downtown Le Sueur last week. He had reportedly asked the girl to take his picture and gave her a camera before grabbing her arm. She was able to break loose and run away. He was arrested later that day after the victim identified him through a photograph. He remains in custody in the Le Sueur County Jail. A St. Cloud man was arrested Wednesday and faces possible charges after a high-speed chase that reached speeds of 100 miles an hour. Authorities say the 35-year-old suspect was arrested just after 8 p.m. in Wright County. The suspect was wanted on a Department of Corrections warrant for theft of a motor vehicle. The Stearns County Sheriff's Office received a call at about 6:30 Wednesday morning that the suspect was in the St. Anna area. When a deputy spotted him in a vehicle, the deputy tried to pull him over, but the suspect took off. After a chase from Stearns County Road 9 to Freeport, the Sheriff's Office called off the chase. The suspect was later located in Wright County and arrested. In addition to the original warrant charges, he also faces a possible charge of fleeing police in a motor vehicle. Heading into the Labor Day weekend, gas prices are near the highest they've ever been for this time of year. Oil analyst Tom Kloza.
Nationally, we're seeing an average price of about $3.63 a gallon. That's a few cents higher than in 2008. The big difference was in 2008, we ultimately ended the year at less than $1.75 a gallon. I don't think that's in the cards for 2011.
Meanwhile, in Hutchinson, gas at last check ranging from $3.66 to $3.78 a gallon. The Minnesota average at $3.83. The national average at $3.65, according to MinnesotaGasPrices.com. Some local students are already back in the classroom, but for the vast majority, the Labor Day holiday weekend is the last weekend before school starts Tuesday. With summer coming to an end and the start of the school year just around the corner, Safe Kids is reminding parents and drivers to do their part in keeping kids safe as they walk to school. Because it's a time when many head back to school, Safe Kids wants students and drivers to be extra careful when on the roads. Winnipeg Jets defenseman Dustin Byfuglien is under investigation in Minnesota for boating while intoxicated. The Minnesota native was booked into the Hennepin County Jail and released later. He has not been formally charged yet. Stearns County authorities are waiting for toxicology results for a Burnsville man who died while in custody last week. 22-year-old Jeffrey McGee was found unresponsive in his cell on the morning of August 24th. He was taken to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. A former Minnesota nurse accused of stealing a painkiller from a patient during surgery was given probation under a plea deal.
Sarah Mae Casaretto entered an Alford plea Thursday to the fifth-degree controlled substance crime for possession of fentanyl. The plea allows Casaretto to maintain her innocence, but acknowledges the evidence would be enough to convict her. After she serves 3 years probation, the case will be dismissed and her record wiped clean. She will serve no jail time and pay no fine. The plea did not satisfy Larry King, who was undergoing a procedure for kidney stones at Abbott Northwestern Hospital last November when prosecutors say Casaretto gave him only a third of the recommended dose. King calls the deal a slap on the wrist. Abby Pop reporting.
The president facing a grim economic forecast as he seeks re-election. More from ABC's Brad Huilis.
Focus on the White House. The unemployment rate not likely to drop below 9% before next year's presidential election. President Obama's own advisors telling him that. Another reason his jobs plan is so important. ABC News White House correspondent Ann Compton.
This snapshot of the economy is not a pretty picture, Brad, but President Obama actually hopes that he and Congress can change it if they come up with an aggressive job creation plan and get it passed. After all, they all have re-elections to run next year, and those numbers are powerful weapons for their political challengers. Brad.
Republican presidential candidate Michelle Bachmann told the American Legion Convention she's worried about the debt and the threat to U.S. security.
The interest on the payments on the debt are going to the Chinese, and those payments are going to build up Chinese military efforts.
Bachmann says the debt is a disservice to our military. Brad Huilis, ABC News.
The number of job openings in Minnesota is on the rise. Job vacancies increased more than 32% during the second quarter of the year. State labor analyst Orion Cassell says we're getting back to a more normal hiring level.
Job vacancies dropped off down to only 26,000 during the fourth quarter of 2009. Now they're back up to about 55,000, and that's more in line with what we saw before the recession hit.
Cassell says Minnesota's unemployment rate remains high because there's more competition for the job openings. The state has nearly 4 unemployed people for each vacancy, which is a 1.2% decline from the second quarter of last year. The Pentagon says it has positively identified the remains of a Minnesota pilot shot down over North Vietnam in 1965. DNA testing has helped confirm that the remains are those of Air Force Major Thomas Reitman of Red Wing. Ragweed pollen is bursting out all over, and allergy sufferers know it all too well. It's peak season for ragweed, which triggers sneezing, itchy eyes, runny nose, and other irritations. Minnesota allergy specialist Dr. Malcolm Blumenthal says high humidity and warm temperatures make this an especially difficult season for allergy sufferers.
Dampness and sunshine could bring up pollination and drive pollen get in the air and give people trouble. Trouble of hay fever and asthma mainly.
Dr. Blumenthal advises sufferers to stay indoors as much as possible until ragweed season starts to ease, usually in late September or early October. Despite all the focus on food that is fun and fattening, the state fair offers lots of things on the healthy side. The Minnesota Department of Health is dispensing information on making your house a healthy home, and that includes dealing with radon, a colorless gas that can seep in from the ground.
It is a potential carcinogen, and it is something we should be concerned about. And it's not a case of whether you have an old house or a new house. Homes in Minnesota are at risk for radon, so that's a good one to know about.
Spokeswoman Pam York says the health department booth also offers tips to householders on dealing with mold, pests, and water contamination. The booth is in the education building on the east side of the fairgrounds. Twins had yesterday off. They traveled to the West Coast today to take on the L.A. Angels. You can hear that game perhaps here on AM 1260 KDUZ, I believe after the football game, if I'm not mistaken. The official start time of tonight's game, 9:05. Albert Pujols hit a grand slam, and the Cardinals completed a 3-game sweep of the Milwaukee Brewers with an 8-4 win. Rafael Furcal